Down the shed! Hi and welcome to another edition of Down the Shed. In this video I'm going to be putting together this mini Tesla coil. So we have, I'm not sure if they're MOSFETs, they're kind of MOSFET-y, I might Google the numbers on them. We've got an IRF 530N and a TIP41C. They screw into these heat sinks, so I'll basically screw those in first, and then so yeah, they just screw into there, and then we'll place those on the board. So I'll get those done. So that's those screwed onto their heat sinks as so. Okay, so the TIP41C is an NPN transistor with a voltage collector emitter breakdown max of 100 volts. Current collector max is 6 amps, power max is 2 watts. DC current gain is 15 at 3 amps, 4 volts. There is more information, but it's a through hole mount. So basically they're a pair of, I think, power transistors. So I'm not sure if they're both MOSFETs. They look like what I believe are MOSFETs. Yeah, this one is definitely a MOSFET, so I'm guessing that one is as well, but MOSFETs are transistors as far as I'm aware anyway. So let's crack on and get those on the board. So the one closest to me, Q1, is the IRF 530. Ooh, drop it. So we'll just pop that in, like so, making sure that the heat sink's sitting squarely on the board. Blue tack that down and solder it. Right, so that's number 1 on the board. So we'll now put number 2 on. Again, blue tacking down, making sure the heatsink is squarely flat on the board. And plop the solder, keeping your iron clean, no bridges, and we're soldered in nicely. So I'll use my hardcore wire cutters for that, because they're quite big leads on those MOSFETs. So that's those two on the board. Now then, my first mistake with doing that was, I don't know if you can see in there, but in there we have a 10k and a 2k resistor to try and fit. So I think we should do those next, seeing as we're going to have to get those in with tweezers now. So the 10k brown, black, black, red, brown, or the other way around. I knew this was going to be fun. That's what happens when you do things without thinking ahead. So if any of you are actually building this kit, I would suggest you do R4 and R3 first and get those 2 resistors in before putting the MOSFETs on. There we go. So that's one of them in. So we'll get some solder onto that. Clean your tip, nice and flat. Do the other leg. Snips. So this is another one of those kits that you really sort of have a confidence problem with, or I do. It's kind of coils and will it work, won't it work. I think it's more a case of will it work. It's down to my skill or abilities, not the kit. Sometimes it's down to the kit, but I think in this instance it probably will work. It's just whether I can get it together as it's meant to go. There we go, that's the other resistor in. So we gave ourselves a bit of grief with those, but more fiddly than anything. Wasn't a disaster. I think a bit of blue tack on that one, just to hold it in spot. There we go. Heat the lead, heat the pads, bring the solder in, take the iron away, heat, introduce solder, remove iron. There we go. So we've now got a 2K and a 10K resistor and the two MOSFETs with their heat sinks, which, believe it or not, is actually like 20% of the kit done already. They are quite loose. Not a lot you can do about that though. Apart from, well, yeah, there's not really a lot you can do. You can try reflowing and pushing up against them, but it's not going to make any difference. Tiny bit, but not a lot. There's going to be a bit of movement in there. I don't think I can get those any tighter. Especially not with the angle that the screws are in now anyway. Yeah, there's not a lot of play in there. Right, so down this side of the board we've got a 10K, and over this side of the board we've got a 2K. Oh, wrong way. I've just measured this one as 2000 or 1995 ohms, so that's 2K. This one's going to be a pig. There we go, it's done. So we'll snip that low, but we'll leave the bit of a leg on there and just finish it off in a while. So let's get the other 10K in. I've had this kit a while, I've been quite excited about this one, but I haven't got a decent power source. This is like 9 to 30 volts, so I'm going to run two 9-volt batteries in series, I think it is, plus to minus, giving me an 18-volt power supply. I could run it off one, but the more power you put in, the greater the effect. So at some point I need to get hold of myself a decent bench of power supply. It's one thing I'm lacking at the moment. That could go in further, that's slipped slightly. So just reflow one end, push it in, reflow the other end, push it in. Job's a good one. Right, let's get this little 105 on. Ceramic cap, that's C2. Snip those. A bit low on that one, reflow it. There we go. So that's the ceramic cap in. We've got two LEDs, one's for power and one's to do what it should do in the circuit. So you shouldn't actually get any light out of one of the LEDs, or you might get a dim light out of it according to these very Chinese instructions, which are a pain in the arse to keep translating. So we'll put the two LEDs in. They've given us 2 green, 3 mils. So I do like to test the resistors before I fit them, just to make sure. There's one. You never know, you might get a dodgy batch and a few not work, and then you think your kit's not properly playable. And there's number 2. So let's pop those in. Again, you've got the little diode symbol with the line across and a flat edge on the board. Square peg, round peg. Positive goes in the square. I've said it before, it's the unwritten rule that positive is a square peg if it's been done like that on the board. But we know that that line denotes the cathode. Yeah, the cathode, which is the minus. Plus the shape of the symbols on the silk screen kind of tell us what we need to know. So I'm having trouble finding the O on that one. Oh, that one goes in alright. So I might just leave them up slightly. Nah, let's put them in. There we go. So let's get the other one. Again, long leg towards us. There we go, that one went alright. That looks like a different LED actually. Oh, its colour was slightly different when I lit it. Long leg towards me. So they're on the board. Some solder. I need to clean. There we go. Keep it clean and the solder flows nicely. If you don't, it just starts clogging and you have troubles with joints. You'll have bad joints, dry joints. Okay, so now we have the 2 resistors. So the only thing on this side of the board to deal with now is the coil, and that's going to be fun. So we'll concentrate over on this side of the board. And we have a 1 UF cap, 1 UF 50 volts. Again, this is polarity. There's a plus on the board and there's a white semicircle. White semicircle is always the negative side to match the stripe on the cap. But they've given us the plus, which as we know is the long leg. 2 round holes on this one, no square, which I'd have expected. Funny thing is, there's a track that goes to the positive, but the negative doesn't seem to be connected. Oh, there it is. There's a track on top of the board. So the board appears to be double-sided. We've got tracks above and below. Thank you for disturbing me, phone, and breaking my flipping stream there. So I've had to start a new record file. Cheers for that. Right, so that's the cap on. Now we have an audio connector that goes on here, which is a basic 3.5mm, and you can see right through this one. I quite like that. So a basic 3.5mm audio connector. That goes on here next to the MOSFET. In hindsight, I'd probably put those MOSFETs in last because of the size of the heat shrink. But I was so excited, it's the first time I played with any, that I put them in first. So I get a nice large amount of solder on this one. It's going to be anchoring. You don't want to spend too long with the heat though. You might damage some of the plastic parts. But yeah, you need to anchor this as best you can. and the spacing around the pins for those through holes is actually quite wide, so there's probably quite a lot of it flowing up towards the pin, which you don't want getting too hot. So that's the 3.5mm jack on barrel plug. This is 15 to 24 volts, it says on here. I'm sure I read somewhere on one of these kits 9 volts upwards, but this says 15 to 24 volts, which is why I've delayed in building it, because I've been wanting to get a power supply for it, but we'll just go with the 2 9-volt batteries and see what happens. So again, get a decent amount of solder on one of these pins. Make sure it's nicely pushed through, and then flow the other two. Don't be afraid to put more on. There we go, clean the iron. So that's that on. So basically all we're left with now is I've got to figure out what J3 is, because all I've got left in the parts bin is one of these, but I don't think you actually connect this. This is just used for lighting up, to show the power, and the coil. Now I'm just looking, I've got a bunch of hardware here. I'm guessing that's just to hold for it to stand on the desk quite neatly. Well, that's a nice touch. So I'll be back shortly. We'll work on this. We've got a bunch of cable here. This we're basically going to connect into here, and then we wind it round the coil a couple and a half times. Need to find something to make a decent circle on that, or whatever. And then we'll have the fun of seeing if we can electrocute ourselves. Now apparently it's not dangerous. I would just hope not, with them selling it out of China the way they are. So there's the risk of a slight burn, but not of electric shock. So you shouldn't come to any harm with this kit. What we need to do now is glue this on here. And I do believe that this wire goes down into L2, and that's being wound this way. So we want our other coil to go around this way, because it has to go in the opposite winding direction. So I'm going to glue this on. Right, okay, so I've glued the coil on. That ain't going to stand up. I need to prop it with some of that. I do. So I've glued the coil onto the base, heat the iron up. I've popped one lead of the second coil into its hole. So really we need to burn a bit of this off. I need to see what will happen with this if I heat it. Oh bugger. Okay, I'd suggest using either a naked flame or similar to strip some of this. Like so. Probably do a bit more actually, and that can get snipped short. There. Being careful not to damage the rest of it. Right, so that's now in a position where we can solder it. Clean the iron, clean the iron. I'm just going to run that bit of solder. Right, hopefully that's enough to get a connection there. If not, we'll have to desolder and strip that. So we'll just push this one all the way in. But what I'm going to do with that one is we're going to put the flux on and carry the solder across. So carrying the solder will evaporate the flux within it. That little wisp of smoke is the flux going. So the flux we've put on the board will replace that and help our solder join, like so. So if you do need to carry solder, just make sure you use flux first. Mostly used for direct soldering. So I've got two, oh, I don't know if I've put enough coil on here actually. So this end wants to go down into this one, like so. I think we can pretty much just get away with soldering that straight in. So I just need the pad, get the solder dribble in there without pushing the cable back out. So that is pretty much the coil finished. So the main winding on this coil is going anti-clockwise, which is why mine is possibly going clockwise. I'm not sure, we might have to do something about that, change it or whatever. But yeah, that's the finished item. So what I'm going to have to do now, let's give you a bit of a better closer look. So there we go. So I've now got the green cable coiled round. We've got our little wire coming up here that has been soldered into here, L2. Our coil L1 is in. So all we need to do now is provide ourselves with 18 volts or thereabouts. Okay, so I'm going to have to kill the light in here. We've got a small corona discharge going on, and yes, you do feel a bit of a pinprick when you touch it. I'm going to kill some light, shut the shutters. Okay, we've got our corona discharge. I'm now looking, I've got about 16 volts going through here. Ah, there you are. Right, so we've got a little neon supplied. So we're going to bring the neon in. Oh, and look at that. It's magic. So there we go. We've got our little Tesla coil. I'm going to zoom this out so you get a better view of what's going on. So I'm bringing the neon in. You can see it's already started to glow. That's cool. And as you see, as we get closer, it gets brighter. So there's a little bit of electronic science. Let's get that corona going again. Tingles. We may have to revisit this one in the future, put a bit more. See how that grows then when my finger goes near? That's cool. Ah, did you see it bend over to get me? That's most excellent. I'm going to zoom that. So you can see the little corona discharge. Oh, shite. Okay. So watch the corona discharge. See it grow? I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up. But it actually jumps over to attack the finger. That's brilliant. So let's get the neon in once more just for a bit of fun. Because there's always fun with playing with a neon. Especially when you're creating light without actually using any light. So let's see how well this lights up now. Oh, what would you believe? See how that lights up? The closer we get to that coil, the brighter it goes. That's actually creating out a half decent amount of light for a little neon. So I'm really impressed with this. If you like the video, hit like. If you want to see more videos of experimental kits and just general cheap Chinese builds that have little or no instructions, then keep an eye on my channel because I'll be getting more of these. I've got more on the way, I've got more to buy, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Down the shed!